We are live. We are back from, it's been about a month since I've had this last podcast. I've been busy. I've been traveling, got a lot of stuff going on, but I cannot think of a better way to come back than to have this awesome legend. And I got to introduce him like Roflo does. Got to introduce him like Roflo, Stevie Bukes.
There we go. I love that. You know, that nickname stuck. And I'm not mad about it either. I like it. I'm with it.
I bet you've been called worse, right? That's what I always say.
Oh yeah.
People say, "Oh, is your name Peter or Pete?" And I'm like, "Call me whatever. I've been called worse. I really don't care."
No doubt.
So I just want to say how crazy this is and how small the world is and how great social media can be. That I watch you on MLB Network all the time. I watch MLB Network every day. You're, a frequent host or a frequent guest. Giving out your picks, analysis, and all that stuff. And now you are here on my podcast. So I just want to thank you for coming on and, giving me some time. This has just been really special. So thank you.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Absolute pleasure. I have no problem doing it. So thank you for asking me.
So Steve, let me get to know you. So like a lot of my friends and like myself, did you used to play sports? You're a former athlete and you can no longer play anymore. So you developed a gambling habit.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, no doubt. Like my peak years were in high school and like college, and then like I needed to like relive something and feel something again, right? So naturally you get into gambling, and that's what happens. But I played baseball all throughout my younger years. Actually played dodgeball too as well, and not just like pick up dodgeball, like nationally ranked teams, and go to Vegas and play and win that and win money. Like it was a
like
real
average Joe's gym.
It was exactly that. And the movie really kind of kickstarted that. And it really became like a big thing. So like my team based out of Boston ended up being the number 1 ranked team in the country. So was like, it's a cool story, right? And to be able to do that. So that was a lot of fun. And then just as I got older, obviously sports betting is very prominent now. It was before, whether it be like, places you're not supposed to talk about, but
right
now it's obviously a national thing. And here we are today.
That's great. I mean, I would like to see some. I mean, I don't know if you have any like footage or anything from like your dodgeball days. Like you guys had like uniforms and obviously, right? It was all competitive.
Yep. The footage needs to be dug up, but there is footage out there in the universe somewhere.
Okay. So tell me where the love for sports gambling came from. Obviously, like a lot of guys, like you said, you played sports before, and then you kind of get to an age or you're busy with work and stuff like that, and then it's like I can't compete, but I still have all this knowledge, I still have this passion, I still watch it every day. So let me put some money on it and get something invested into this game.
Yeah, honestly, like I was a big, I love going to the casino, right? Like you go there for the first time, like one of the, first places I went to when I turned 21 is naturally you go to Las Vegas, right? And you go to Las Vegas and that is like the mecca of sports betting. That's really when you think of like where sports betting not originated from, but in America, where would you go for sports betting? You go to Las Vegas, right? So you go there, you place a couple bets and you're like, this is kind of cool. I like it. Like it adds such a different element when you're watching the game, whether that's good or bad, right? Like it comes to a point where, I like sports already, like especially baseball. And I always wanted to dive deeper into baseball. So now I have like this knowledge about the game. I feel like a more advanced knowledge of the game. It's like, well, now I can put this to use. Right now I can actually try to take this and make some money off of it. It doesn't always happen because nobody's a perfect gambler. No one's ever going to be a perfect gambler. But when you do that, it really just adds like another element and it just makes the game more exciting. It makes it like if you feel like you're a part of it, you know what I mean? And I think like that's a really cool aspect of it. So, Las Vegas really kicked it off for me. And now that it's becoming legalized more and more, it's become more welcomed or more, what would be a good word for that? Like more accepted. Yeah. I think that's the perfect way to put it. Now it's just really kind of blown up and now it's just, it's everywhere. And it's almost like you can't avoid it, which is a good and a bad thing, but I think it's really brings a different element of sports and it brings a lot more eyeballs onto the game that you wouldn't normally have had before.
Right. And along with like what you're saying about like, it's cool to make money off of something that but I also like being right. Like when I know I'm right, I won't let it go because I know I'm right. You're wrong. You said this, whatever. So when people say, oh, that's dumb. Why Astros, that's too many runs. Okay. And then it hits. And then it's like, listen, I told you I'm right. I'm smarter than you. And there's a little bit of that. Well, there's a lot of bit of that for me. I like being right about stuff.
No doubt. And like, for me too, like to be right on a national stage, right? Like, cause I'll go on MLB Network, I'll give my plays. Like I went yesterday. We had a really good day yesterday. We went on Friday. We swept the board on Friday. Like, that's awesome. But at the same time, also being on that national stage, I can be wrong on a national stage. So like, there's a very fine line to walk with that. Cause like when we started the season this year, I was on a very cold streak. I think we were like 0 for 7 for the first like 2 shows that we went on. That's bad. Yeah. That's not, thankfully I've already been on the show a couple of years, so they're not like, who is this guy? Yeah. Like, he's coming on here and he's giving all these losers, but that's just what happens with sports betting. Like, you're going to go through those peaks and valleys. Like, that's going to absolutely happen. But now we're on a really nice run, and that's awesome. And now we're making some money, and that's helpful. But it's funny because, you can be right and wrong, but it's so funny for me because it's like, I can be right or wrong, but I have a ton of eyes on it. Right. That's the good and bad part about doing it on a national stage.
So do you have like a strategy, knowing that you have like this big audience and everybody's watching you? It looks like you limit it to about 3 picks on MLB Network. Now, is that through the network, or is that for you? Like, you keep that, around like 3 picks?
I think 3 picks, like on a nightly basis, is just a really good number, right? Like, you can do as many or as little picks as you want. But like, for me, it's like, if there's a game, if there's like an 11 game slate, like tonight's 11 games after 7:00, I can definitely find 3 plays that I'm like, okay, I feel strong about this. But once you start giving plays just to give plays, that's when you lose like the credibility. Like, like on my Twitter page, right? Like, I'll give plays on days that I'm not on MLB Network. And there's some days where I just don't. And people are like, oh, give us a play. Give us a play. I'm not going to give you a play just to give you a play. Right. Like, especially like, I want to have that type of reputation. I'm not just going to throw out something so people, oh, have fun, take this. Like, if I'm putting out something or I'm giving a play on MLB Network, I truly feel through my, analysis of what I've done that this is going to hit. It doesn't always happen, but I think like 3 on a nightly basis is strong because, again, if every team is playing, you should be able to find 3 plays that you like, whether it's, an over-under or a game total or a prop or anything like that. But I think 3 is just like a really good number on a nightly basis.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is not about just giving out tons and tons. I mean, if you want to be a volume better, that's totally fine. But like, I do a betting show. I do it 3 times a week. And yesterday I wasn't prepared, and like, I didn't do the show because I don't want to half-ass it and say, well, this looks good. Like, I want to be, have a strong conviction about how I feel about it, and then put it out there. And if it, I'm going to at least give you reasons why I like it. Like you said, it's not always going to hit, but I will always give you 4 to 5 reasons why it should, or why I like it.
And one thing that's difficult for somebody in my position too is like, you can see from my background, I work for DraftKings, right? There is a section of social media that feels like automatically, because I work for DraftKings and I work for the DraftKings Sportsbook, I am here to give you losers, right?
Yes, you work for the books, right?
I work for the books. It's a conspiracy. I'm here to make you lose money so the Sportsbook can make money.
Because they work with the players and they all work together.
Right. Yeah. Let me tell you something. That is the dumbest fucking thing that anybody can say. Yeah. There is no purpose. Let me ask you this, right? If you go to the casino for the first time, right? You go with $1,000. You lose $1,000 like this. Are you going to want to go back tomorrow?
No.
So why would I be looking to give you losers so that you have a bad taste in your mouth from doing that? You're like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. So now you're a one-time customer. Thanks for coming. What good does that do? Right.
Also, couldn't they hire anybody to just give losers? It's harder to find someone who's going to give the winners.
Right. And that's what, like, me and some of my other, coworkers do. Like Julian Edlow, he's an excellent analysis too. He's a great handicapper. Like, we go out there and give you analysis. Like, and if you actually sit there and read the analysis, it goes, okay, maybe this does make sense. No, it's not. Again, it's not always going to hit. We're never going to have a perfect record.
Right.
But like, we're sitting there, we're trying to give insightful thoughts on why we think this is a play to make tonight. And then it's your choice to either make it or not. No one's holding a gun to your head to say, you must take this bet, or, what DraftKings Sports is going to ban you if you don't take the bet that we give you. Right. Like, you make the decision after that. We're just trying to do some of the legwork for you. So I think that perception that, oh, we work for the book, we're in it to take your money, that needs to go away.
Yeah, well, I think most people are lazy and they want to be told what to do. So if you are
100%.
lazy enough just to take someone's bet on their word, then that's your fault. You're a dummy. You're an idiot. You didn't do your own research. You didn't back it up. You just took
Yep.
someone's word. And it was a free pick, too. There's people that sell picks and they'll
Oh, yeah.
charge you whatever. So you took a free pick and you lost. Get over it. Go do your
Yep.
own work then.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there are people out there that charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for daily picks.
Mhm.
Like, and if that's the route you want to go, hey, all the power to you. This is
Right.
a free country. You do whatever you want. You can take my pick. You can just fade my picks. You could do
Right.
that also. Maybe you'll be more profitable. But it's like, the consensus that people who work for the books are in it to, make you lose. That's just so nonsense. Like there would be so much that would have to go through for, me to give a pick and then the sportsbook does their thing to make sure that loses. It's totally
Right.
asinine.
Yeah, they tell Trout, we need 3 Ks tonight, okay?
Yeah. Right.
So, Steve, tell us a little bit, like, how did you navigate through this and like get to where you are today? Obviously, like we said, frequent on MLB Network, you work for DraftKings. Like, what is that road? What did that look like? How did you get to where you are?
When I was growing up, I always wanted to be involved in sports somehow. So I originally went to a trade school that was just focused on broadcasting. I didn't want to go to college and take science classes and math classes and all that crap. I wanted to do exactly what I wanted to go for, which was broadcasting. Once I completed that, I worked at a couple local radio stations, which is hellacious, but it was also good to get that exposure first because I could make my on-air mistakes at these little tiny places. And people always kind of want to be, oh, I want to work for DraftKings. Well, what experience do you have? Well, I don't have any experience. Like, you need to take your lumps early because that is going to prepare you for something like this. Like, imagine if I had never had any experience. I land a job with DraftKings and they say, hey, we want to put you on MLB Network tomorrow. I'd be like crapping my pants.
Right.
My first appearance is going to be on a national TV show. Like, that's a lot to take in. But I did a lot of local radio shows, and then DraftKings was looking for a daily fantasy writer, and I love playing daily fantasy sports, so I applied, got the job, and I've been with the company for almost 8 years now, moving from daily fantasy. And if you do daily fantasy, you're kind of doing swing research as well.
Right.
Especially when it comes to props. So if you're into daily fantasy, the transition to sports betting is a lot easier than you think if you haven't done it before, because you're already in that realm if you're doing that research. If for example, tonight, like Bruce Zimmerman is taking the mound for the Orioles, right?
Yeah,
He's been phenomenal.
Talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bruce Zimmerman's been fantastic. He's got a fairly tough matchup against the Twins, but the Twins strike out a ton. So if you're doing that research, it's like, okay, now you can kind of get into Zimmerman's strikeout props or whatever. So,
but also the advanced stats kind of show there may be some aggression, correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. But it's like when you're in that realm, it was easy for me to transition to sports betting because sports betting is king now. Daily fantasy will always be there. So it was an easy transition for me, but take your lumps early in the early jobs that I had, moved to DraftKings, and then we've just kind of been here since.
So you obviously know all this work that you put in and what it takes to get where you are. What do you make of all these handicappers that are on Twitter and stuff like that? Because it's a very saturated market. I mean, everyone's not at the professional level like you are, but anybody with a platform now, like even me, like I have a camera, a Twitch or whatever, and then now I got a betting show. So like, what do you make of like this very like diluted market of like sports handicapping?
It's got good and bad, right? There's pros and cons to that. I think it's important that people do have this type of platform that, if they do bring some good information or they bring good content, like that should be welcomed and that should be accepted. It also has cons because there are people who, maybe are disingenuous about it too, as well. So there's really pros and cons to it. But like for someone like me, like if I see somebody that, let's just say they had Book It with Trent. Okay. Great example, right? He was like king on TikTok, right? With his content. And like now he's kind of got this big following. And I think that's awesome. Right. Like maybe people say that he's, doesn't give great picks or whatever, but like, that's almost like his shtick. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, maybe he doesn't give all these great picks, but like that's the life of a sports gambler. You're never going to be right 100% of the time. But I like seeing stuff like that because he's entertaining, right? And he does give some information. Whether you want to follow or not, that's up to you. But I think it's cool that they have that type of platform. Whereas like when I first started, you know, I'm not trying to sound old. I'm only 35, but like when I started, like there wasn't that platform. So
Right.
like the road for me was a lot tougher to get there. And I'm not saying that like this type of stuff gives people an easy road, but there's so much content to consume that it's open that people can do this type of content. And I think that's cool because they can do it in a unique way. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we need. Because if you watch TV, right? If you watch ESPN, if you watch any of these sports shows, they're all the same, right? Like you basically take the same concept. It's 3 or 4 guys sitting at a desk talking about whatever.
Mhm.
Whereas when you have all this social media stuff, people are doing stuff in such creative and fun ways that it's like that's the content I want to consume.
And it's
Right?
uncut, uncensored, not
Yes.
so tight-nipped, like, PC. It's a little bit more kind of
Yep.
whatever you want it to be.
Yep. No doubt. And so I think that it has its pros and cons, but I think the pros outweigh the cons.
Okay. So like what advice would you have for people? Because obviously I'm trying to build my own door. Nobody was opening doors for me in
Sure.
sports, in betting. So I want to build my own door. That's what I'm trying to do here
Yep.
and like, reach out and do that. So what kind of advice would you say? Like, here's how to get more exposure or things that you have seen. Obviously we touched on, the social media and TikTok aspect, but what else?
Don't be afraid to reach out to people that you think might not respond. Right. I think that's so important. Like Julian Edlow and myself do a podcast for DraftKings. And we started out, we obviously DraftKings is a big platform, so that helps, right? But like some of the people that we've had on our show, I'm like, I wouldn't have like we had Matthew Berry on our show before from ESPN.
Yeah.
That's a huge name. And we had him on to talk NFL playoffs. So it's like I think people are like afraid or like don't think that they can get some of this information from people who are in the industry. Like
Mhm.
as I've been working at DraftKings, the amount of people that I talk to now on a regular basis, like still baffles my mind.
Yeah.
You know, like it's funny. I recently got connected with Will Middlebrooks, who played for the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
When I was, younger, I was at Fenway Park watching
Watching
Will
it.
Middlebrooks play.
Yeah.
And now him and I like are talking and everything on the phone and everything. And it's like, this is a crazy world that
Yeah.
I live in now, right? It's kind of wild. And he reached out to me saying
Oh,
that
okay.
that he liked like my MLB Network stuff and everything. And that was like so cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's like really humbling for me to get that kind of information. But don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to try to connect with other people because I guarantee you, it is a guarantee. Every single person was in the same position that you are, or anybody else who's starting out and wants to make their name, and something happened. They
Right.
paved their way, or they were able to land a job. But don't stop grinding. And I know it's kind of like a cliche advice, but like it's seriously true. Because if you keep putting in the work, there's so many avenues that you can kind of get well known, whether it's TikTok, whether it's streaming on here on StreamYard or wherever it is. Like there's a lot of avenues for you to do that. And if you do have the right information, if you put in the work, somebody is going to notice at some point. It feels like the market is saturated, but let me tell you, for every time we say the market is saturated, somebody else comes out. And
Right.
somebody else is a well-known personality or whatever you want to say. So just that type of stuff, that people are a lot more willing to reach out or reach back to you than you'd think.
Consistency is key, and don't be afraid to reach out to
100%.
Stevie Bukes.
That's right. The
He will
DMs
reply
are
to
open.
every DM you send him.
Well, but believe me, there's some DMs that don't get replied to, and that some of them aren't fans of me because of
I'm
a bet they
sure.
lost. But
I'm sure you
the
get a lot
DMs,
of
the
that stuff.
DMs are a cesspool. But you reached out to me, right? Like you
I
reached out to
did.
me, I got back to you, and that's that. I'm not saying that I'm great for doing that, but like it was easy, and I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but I
dude, I'll
greatly
definitely do it. I'm
appreciated
down.
that though. Like
Right.
that's made my day. My little brother's watching. Like this is like exciting. So yeah, that is
That's
very
awesome.
cool. It's like your way to almost give back. Like, hey, I was where you were. Like, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of do this, right?
Right. Absolutely. Because like if you told me 10 years ago this would be my job, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. Right.
Right.
Because like before, like I was working at, an
I was
Apple
just a
retail
dodgeball
store.
champion.
I would
Yeah.
right. But like I've worked at like an Apple retail store. I worked as an inventory associate at a furniture place. Like I, had that journey.
Right.
So it's not impossible because 8 years ago I was literally counting chairs and sofas. That was my job.
Mhm.
Now I'm, doing things on a national broadcast. Like the path is there. You just have to choose the right path.
Yeah. So Steve, without divulging your obviously your hidden secrets, but what's your process when you're either, handicapping games or, you're looking at props? Like when I wake up in the morning, I get on my computer, I'll get on covers, I'll get on,
Yep.
Baseball Savant, all that stuff, and kind of try to develop a story and kind of look what's going to happen. I'll go to DraftKings and see what props there are, what the strikeouts are at, and just try and condense this information into something I say that's a good pick for today. What's your process look like?
You know what's funny? I don't look at other people's picks. I very, very rarely look at other people's picks because I like to form my own opinion first and then kind of see where the rest of the field is after. So looking at like what other people are doing first is one of the last things I do. One of the best websites, especially if you're handicapping baseball, that you can use is Fangraphs. Are you familiar with Fangraphs at all?
Yeah, it's in my bookmarks.
Okay, so Fangraphs is a very, very complex baseball statistical website. And if you go to it at first, it looks like an absolute nightmare because there's so much information on there and there's so many numbers on there. But that to me is like one of the best spots for advanced stats. And like, you talk about Bruce Zimmer and you brought up, this potential regression. Like that is something you can find at Fangraphs that they do the normal stats and then they do things like WOBA and FIP and all that. And that's, explaining all that is for a different day. But it's like, I like to go on there. I like to organize all the starting pitchers that are going for the day and then kind of look at where some of those starting pitchers' weaknesses is, right? So like someone like Drew Smiley is pitching tonight. You have a Cubs hat on. You must want to see Drew Smiley. Okay.
Yeah. I got Michael Barrett punching out AJ Przinsky on my shirt.
Oh, perfect. That's a sweet shirt.
I'm ready for today.
Yeah. But Drew Smiley, he's known for giving souvenirs to fans. And what I mean by that is he gives up a ton of home runs, right? So automatically I'm like, okay, Drew Smiley, that's somebody I want to be targeting against today. Maybe I'd take some hitter props there or anything like that. But really, I think the starting point is to get to know that day's starting pitchers because then everything kind of webs out after that, right? If we have Carlos Rodon facing Julio Urias tonight, two really good starting pitchers. First half, first 5 innings, the over-under is 3.5. That feels like a little bit too high. These are two guys who were Cy Young candidates, maybe a year or two ago. So now these two guys are going up against each other. So now I'm probably going to be looking at the under on that. But like really getting to know the starting pitchers is key because, like I mentioned, that's where everything goes after that. You're not going to take, all these hitting props for pitchers that are going, hitters that are going against Max Scherzer, right? Because I know how good Max Scherzer is. But someone like Drew Smiley, okay, I know he gives up a ton of fly balls. I know he gives up a ton of home runs. Now I might start looking at props for that, like team totals or things like that. So there's a million ways that you can tackle slates or days of baseball, but you really need to get to know these starting pitchers because everything really comes from that.
Okay. So yeah, getting to know the slate, starting pitchers, and then you can kind of analyze picks from that.
Yep, absolutely. And Fangraphs is an excellent, excellent website where you can do that because you can literally create a list of all the starting pitchers that are going tonight and see all of their stats side by side. So you can really see where you can start to divulge and start to dive into some of those hitting props or even the game props.
Okay. So check that out, guys. Fangraphs. Yeah, I got a couple. Baseball Savant is another good one. Yeah, there's just a couple that I'll kind of look at just to get those advanced statistics that I think are really important. So, Steve, I wanted to ask you just a couple baseball questions. So,
sure.
Dead balls, yes or no? Is this a real thing or is this a narrative?
I think it's a real thing. Unders have been absolutely crushing it this season, like to like a 60% clip. And that's absurd. I saw a tweet yesterday or the day before, like the average run scored per game in the month of April was the lowest it's ever been. I don't think that's a coincidence, right? Like there's a lot of factors that people say that, are going into this, a shortened spring training. Yeah, that definitely helps. The weather's been colder. That definitely helps too. But when it's consistently unders, and the books have adjusted to this too. If you go on like the DraftKings Sportsbook, you very rarely see an over-under total at this point of 9 or more.
Right.
Last year, 9 was like the bar, right? It was like every game was 9, 9.5. You get some 10s there. You're not even seeing that anymore.
I mean, so the Mets Phillies game the other day was 6.5, and those are two great hitting offenses.
Yep. Yep, and there's a couple games tonight, or there was. I think actually it was Chicago and the Cubs game. Earlier it was 6.5. I think it's moved up to 7 now, but it was at 6.5.
Mhm.
And that's what Drew Smiley. All
Right.
Drew Smiley does is give up home runs, but
Yeah.
it's 6.5. That's just how it's been. So I think it's absolutely the dead balls. And I don't really take the grip thing into consideration too much because
Mhm.
yes, that was a factor last year, but the ball was still flying last year. It
Mhm.
has not been at all. So I do think that that's a big factor. And I do think the balls are dead right now.
I'm just saying why though, because if they want more offense, what would be the advantage of having those dead balls?
There is no advantage. I mean,
Okay.
believe me, I am a massive baseball fan. I defend that sport to death. It makes no sense. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. Nobody understands it. And the problem is, if this continues, at some point they're likely going to change it again. So then you're going to go from 6.5 totals being something you'll see, whereas like you'll never see anything under 8.5. That's just what's going to happen because they
Mhm.
changed it up. And look at the difference from last year
Right.
after they ban all the sticky stuff. See you later. Everything's
Yeah.
going out.
Yeah.
I wish this sport that so desperately needs eyeballs on it would just come to a consistent method and sticks to it.
Yeah, it seems like they do everything ass backwards, from reprimanding players to getting eyes on the game. Like everything is just so backwards. So you're just like, why are you doing this to me?
The worst part of it is too, this year especially, when opening day happened, you had 3 of the top 5 prospects making a major league roster. We're living in a time where we have Julio Rodriguez, Bobby Witt Jr., Spencer Torkelson making the opening day roster. 3 dynamic and exciting players. And these guys are all basically struggling at the same time, along with the league. Why would anybody want to watch these guys play when nobody is hitting?
Mhm.
When in reality, these guys should be the face of MLB for this season because they were the 3 top prospects coming into the season, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I mean it comes on the other side, it comes down to like a marketing issue as well. Like I
Yep.
said, if Mike Trout were to walk into 100 grocery stores, he'd probably get recognized in maybe like 7 of them. By people like he just looks like a jack dude, or
Yeah.
any player, unless you have a something that stands out, Tatis's dreads, or Vladdy Jr., something that stands out. Like
Yep.
all these other guys, they're very hard to recognize.
You know what's funny? I don't really watch basketball much. I could point out so many basketball players just because from their marketing.
Right.
Whereas sometimes I'm watching baseball and I'm like, who is that? And
Yeah.
I do this for a
Yeah.
living,
Right.
right? So that's a big concern. That's a big
Yeah.
concern.
Steve, you got any hot takes for this MLB season?
Man, I'll tell you, I have said this last year. I was super high on the Mariners. I love them to come out of the West this season. I know a lot of teams, a lot of people think that it's going to be the Astros. There's a lot of chatter that it can be the Angels. And quite frankly, they've played like the team that maybe could do that. The Mariners are just such a good team. Like they are just flushed with young talent. They made some big moves over the offseason, getting like Robbie Ray, making that trade with the Reds. I really truly think that they could come out of the American League if they get their stuff together. They're second place right now in the AL West. They've been playing well, but there's a lot of good teams in the American League. But like, if you put that team up against any of the other teams in the American League, I truly think the Mariners could take any of them down. Quite frankly, their bullpen is solid, the rotation is solid, the lineup. If they all start hitting, because they haven't even really started hitting yet with Winker, Suarez, Kelnick, Julio Rodriguez,
JP
Adam Frazier at the
Crawford.
top, JB Crawford. That team is so underrated.
Mhm.
I'm happy to be on the bus early because once that team starts getting recognition, I'll be like, too late. We've tried to tell you
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a
you're not
while.
you're not allowed on.
Yep,
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're on the West Coast and play so late sometimes, and people on
no
the East
doubt.
Coast, I'm not staying up to watch it. So you don't get to see those exciting games or these young players who, are doing a lot.
Yep, I totally agree. And the worst part is a lot of the best players in Major League Baseball are all in the West, whether it's the
Mhm.
American League or the National League. I look at the Dodgers, right? Like they have a MLB super team, right? Like
Yeah,
they are that's the equivalent for them. Recognize wise, you probably couldn't even tell half of them if you're a casual fan. And that's
right.
too bad because that team is stacked. Tatis on the Padres. So many good players on the West, and I agree with you. That's a problem for MLB.
Yeah. So, I'm almost done. This is what I want to do if it's okay with you. So you are always on MLB Network, and then RoFlo brings you in and you give out your picks and you're very excited and you give a lot of stats. So I just want to switch roles with you if that's okay. I want to do my best Stevie Bukes impersonation, and then I want you to rate me at the end, okay?
Sure. Yeah,
I just want you to rate me. So this is where RoFlo says, so Stevie, what do you like tonight? And then I'm going to just take it from there, and then you rate me at the end, okay?
All right, so you want me to do my best RoFlo then?
Sure, yes.
Okay, well, let's do that. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
All right. Back here on MLB Central, Stevie Bukes, DraftKings Sportsbook analyst, here to give us his plays for today. What do you got for us today?
Tonight, I'm looking at the Padres versus Guardians game. Mike Clevenger making his revenge game, coming back and playing the Guardians. One of his best buddies, Zach Plesac, he's going against him. It's going to be his first start since September 23rd, 2020. Padres 8-1 in their last 9 games as a favorite, 8-1 in their last 9 games versus a team with a losing record, and 5-1 on their last 6 road games. Clevenger made 3 rehab starts. He had 15 Ks, 5 2/3 innings, pitching to a 2.08 ERA. Padres, 5th best scoring. They got Hosmer and Machado hitting over 375. Both teams had an off day yesterday, so bullpens are going to be rested. Last 5 games, Padres have scored no less than 5 runs every single game. Zach Plesac, his XWOBA, 397, expected slug, 607, 13.3 K percentage. I don't know about that. Guardians, very surprising, 7th best scoring in the league. Padres bullpen, 4.12 ERA. Guardians, 3.17. Padres have won by 2 or more in their last 4 out of 5 games. For those reasons, I like Padres money line. I'll lay the 135. I also think there's value on the Padres minus 1.5 at plus 125. Also, there could be a lot of scoring here. We don't know what we're going to get from Mike Clevenger. Again, these bullpens, a little shaky. Give me over 8 at minus 105. That was pick number 1. Next one, I'm also looking at Twins-Orioles. Orioles are tied with the Diamondbacks for the most strikeouts in the league. Joe Ryan has been lights out for the Twins. He's a potential all-star. Expected batting average, 200. He's striking batters out at a 30% rate. Twins are top 5 in batting average and OPS this week, getting really hot. Bruce Zimmerman, his advanced stats are pointing towards a regression spot. 337 XWOBA, 279 expecting batting average, and a 444 expected slug. Strikeout props might be something to look at today, but for me, I'm going to stick with Joe Ryan to record a win at plus 135, and I'll also lay the juice on the Twins money line minus 165.
Love it. Absolutely.
Did I bring the energy that you bring?
Let me tell you, if I go on vacation during the baseball season, which is rare, but if I do, I'll be like, I know a guy.
Yeah.
Could step into this spot and do it. That's great, man. And your research is good. See, that's the good stuff, man. That's the good stuff. Now, to complete the Steve Buchanan experience, now I got to be somebody on Twitter, which is after I do my appearance and I get somebody who's like, you suck. So now, now you've completed the Steve Buchanan
full experience, right?
You got it. Yep. 100%.
You were never good at dodgeball.
Never. Exactly. That was great, man, though. That's
awesome.
Good stuff.
Appreciate it. Well, again, Steve, thank you for coming on today and hanging out with me and talking baseball, talking betting, your career, a little advice for people in this space as well. So again, sir, thank you so much for answering my DMs and coming on the podcast today.
No doubt, man. It was an absolute pleasure. I had a great time, man. Thank you so much for asking.
All right, I'm going to end it and you just hang around for a second so we can get off air, okay?
All right, man.
Thanks, guys. You take